For 10,000 years, the Ledhari Empire had ruled without war. They did not carry guns. They did not fire missiles. They did not destroy cities. They did not need to. They listened. The Ledhari were born with a gift. They could read minds, not just simple feelings, not just surface thoughts. They could see memories, plans, secrets, fears. To them, every mind in the galaxy was an open door. When their ships entered a new star system, they did not attack. They simply reached out. They found the leaders first. Kings, presidents, generals. They touched their thoughts gently. They saw every weakness, every doubt, every hidden desire. Then they guided them. A small suggestion here, a soft fear there, a dream of peace, a vision of surrender. Planets joined the Ledhari Empire quietly. No blood, no explosions, no resistance. Because if you know every thought, you control every outcome. That was their law. No species had ever resisted them until they found Earth. The blue planet appeared on their long-range scanners. Water, oxygen, billions of life signs. A young world, full of energy. High Speaker Vaylor stood in the center of the mind chamber aboard the flagship. Around him, 12 elder telepaths formed a circle. Silver light glowed on the walls. Another world ready for harmony, one elder said calmly. Vaylor nodded. Prepare the first scan. They closed their eyes. Their minds moved outward like a wave across space. Faster than light. Silent. Invisible. They reached Earth. Normally, when they scanned a planet, they felt clear streams of thought. Minds moved in patterns. Leaders thought about power. Soldiers thought about orders. Workers thought about survival. Simple, straight, easy to follow. This time was different. The moment they touched human minds, the chamber filled with noise. Vaylor's eyes snapped open. What was that? One elder whispered. They reached again, more carefully. Billions of thoughts hit them at once. A woman worried about her child's school test. A man planned dinner. A teenager imagined becoming famous. A scientist questioned a theory. A driver shouted at traffic. A child dreamed about a flying dog. Someone laughed at a memory. Someone cried alone in a dark room. The thoughts did not move in lines. They crashed into each other. Joy mixed with fear. Anger mixed with love. Hope mixed with doubt. Vaylor steadied himself. Focus on one individual. They searched and locked onto a single human leader in a large city. He sat in an office, reading reports. They entered his mind. They expected order. Instead, they found layers. He read a report about the economy. At the same time, he worried about his family. At the same time, he doubted his last decision. At the same time, he imagined how history would judge him. At the same time, he wondered if aliens were real. His thoughts overlapped and argued with each other. Vaylor tried to place a suggestion. You are tired. You want peace. You should accept guidance. The thought entered. For a moment, it rested there. Then the human frowned. Why did I think that? He asked himself. That's strange. The foreign suggestion began to break apart. The human examined his own thought like an object in his hand. Vaylor pulled back quickly. He noticed us. An elder said softly. That is not possible. Another answered. No mind can see us. Vaylor's voice was calm, but his hands trembled slightly. Scan another. They found a soldier preparing for duty. Fear moved through him. But beside fear was determination. Beside that was humor. He made a joke in his head to calm himself. He imagined failure. Then he imagined success. Then he reminded himself to breathe. His mind did not settle. It shifted every second. The Ledhari struggled to stay connected. They tried a child. They entered the mind of a young girl, drawing in her room. She imagined a dragon. The dragon became her friend. The dragon turned into a spaceship. The spaceship fought monsters. She became captain. She saved the world. The images changed so fast the elders gasped. She creates realities inside her mind, one elder said. Why? Another asked. Vaylor had no answer. The Ledhari had always believed advanced minds were quiet, controlled, focused. Human minds were loud. They did not move in straight lines. They jumped. They questioned themselves. They imagined impossible things and treated them as real for a moment. Even when humans were afraid, part of them stood back and studied the fear. They were thinking about thinking. The elders gathered their strength for a wider scan. They reached across continents. The noise grew stronger. Arguments, music, memories, plans, random ideas, old regrets, future dreams, questions with no answers. The Ledhari could not find center. There was no single pattern. Vaylor staggered slightly. Enough! The scan ended. Silence returned to the chamber, but it felt heavy. No species thinks like this, an elder said. They are disordered. Another said, primitive. Vaylor slowly shook his head. No, he said quietly. They are something else. He looked at the glowing image of Earth. We cannot guide them easily, he admitted. For the first time in their long history, the Ledhari felt uncertainty before conquest. Vaylor spoke the words none of them expected to say. Why are their minds so loud? Outside the ship, Earth continued to spin peacefully in space. Below, billions of humans thought about everything and nothing at the same time. And the Ledhari realized something troubling. Humans were not silent. They were overwhelming. The Ledhari did not retreat. They had ruled for 10,000 years. One strange planet would not stop them. High Speaker Vaylor ordered a new plan. No wide scans, he said calmly. Focus on individuals. Study them one by one. The elders agreed. If human minds were storms, then they would examine a single drop of rain. They chose a quiet man sitting alone in a small apartment. He was reading a book. His room was silent. This one will be simple, an elder said. They reached gently into his thoughts. At first, everything seemed normal. The man was reading about history. He thought about ancient wars. He wondered why people fought. He decided war was foolish. Then, in the next second, he imagined himself as a hero in a battle. He pictured saving thousands of lives. He felt proud. Then he shook his head and thought, that's stupid. I'm not a hero. Then he wondered why he always daydreamed. Then he began thinking about dinner. The elders watched carefully. He argues with himself, one said. He does not trust his own thoughts, another observed. Vaylor nodded slowly. Continue. They moved to another human, a woman walking in a park. She thought about her job. She felt unhappy. She told herself to quit. Then she thought about money and fear. She told herself to stay. Then she imagined starting a business. Then she doubted that idea. Then she questioned why she doubted herself. Her mind was not a straight path. It was a circle that kept turning. Why do they question their own ideas? A young telepath asked. Vaylor answered quietly. It may be how they survive. The Ledhari decided to test something deeper. One elder telepath volunteered. His name was Saran. He was calm and experienced. I will implant a peaceful suggestion, Saran said. A simple one. They selected a human city leader again. Saran focused carefully. He shaped a gentle thought. Everything is fine. There is no danger. Relax. He placed a thought inside the man's mind. For a moment, it worked. The human leaned back in his chair. Then the human froze. Wait, he thought. Why did I just think that? The human's heart began to beat faster. That didn't feel like my idea. Saran felt the human examining the thought, turning it around, testing it. The man stood up and walked to a window. Something feels wrong, he thought. I can't explain it. Saran tried to push again. There is no threat. The human shook his head. No, that's not true. I don't know why, but that's not true. The human's doubt grew stronger. He focused on the strange feeling. He began analyzing his own mind. Saran felt pressure building. The human was not fighting with strength. He was fighting with awareness. Suddenly, the connection snapped. Saran cried out and pulled back violently. His body shook. He rejected it. Saran whispered in shock. Vaylor stared at him. He noticed a foreign thought. Yes, Saran said. He questioned it. Silence filled the chamber. The Ledhari had never faced this before. Most species accepted thoughts as natural. They did not examine every idea inside their heads. Humans did. They doubted themselves. They questioned themselves. They watched their own thinking like observers. Vaylor spoke slowly. They are aware of their own minds. On Earth, strange conversations began to appear online. People shared unusual experiences. Did anyone else feel a weird thought today? One person posted. It felt like something was not mine, another replied. A scientist named Dr. Elena Morris noticed a pattern. She studied human cognition. She believed the brain constantly predicts threats. When she read the reports, she felt uneasy. What if, she said to her team, something is probing us? Her team laughed at first, but she continued. The human brain is built to detect patterns. If something foreign enters our thoughts, we might sense it. She began experiments. Meditation groups formed. People practiced focusing on their breathing. They learned to observe their thoughts without reacting. They trained themselves to ask, is this really my idea? Across the world, small communities began similar exercises, not because they knew aliens were watching, but because humans were curious. The Ledhari noticed a change. When they scanned again, something was different. Some minds were calmer, not quieter, stronger. Vaylor studied a young woman sitting in silence. She was breathing slowly, watching her thoughts rise and fall. The Ledhari touched her mind. Instead of chaos, they found a steady awareness. She noticed them immediately. There is something here, she thought calmly. She did not panic. She focused. In her mind, she imagined a wall, not a physical wall, a boundary, a space that was hers. Saran, still recovering, insisted on trying again. I must understand this, he said. Vaylor hesitated but allowed it. Saran reached toward the meditating woman. He pushed deeper than before. For a moment, he felt inside her awareness. Then she focused directly on the foreign presence. She did not know what it was, but she knew it was not her. In her mind, the wall became solid. Saran felt pressure like he had never felt before. Not violence, not attack, resistance. His connection twisted and collapsed. A sharp shock traveled through him. Saran screamed. The elders broke the link instantly. Saran fell to the chamber floor, breathing hard. His mind burned as if struck by light. She saw me, he whispered weakly. Vaylor felt something cold inside him. Humans were not just loud. They were learning. And now, one of their own had been injured by a single trained human mind. Vaylor looked toward Earth again. For the first time, he understood the danger. They were facing a species that could not only question its own thoughts, but could question them back. The Ledhari did not attack again. After Saran's injury, the mind chamber stayed quiet for many cycles. High Speaker Vaylor ordered observation only. If we cannot control them, he said, we must understand them. They gathered human data, books, broadcasts, digital records, personal journals, scientific research. They did not enter minds. They watched from a distance. What they found disturbed them more than the noise. Humans studied fear more than any other species the Ledhari had known. They imagined disasters that had not happened. They prepared for storms before clouds appeared. They created stories about invasions, monsters, and the end of the world. They simulate threats constantly, one elder said. Vaylor nodded. They trained their minds on danger. On one screen, humans practiced emergency drills. On another, writers created stories about alien contact. In labs, scientists built models of possible futures. Humans did not wait for problems. They imagined them first. The Ledhari reviewed psychological studies. Humans had something called anxiety. Their brains searched for risk, even when none was present. This is inefficient, one telepath commented. Or protective, Vaylor replied. They watched debates between human leaders. Two people would argue strongly. Then both would change their minds days later. Then argue again. Then combine ideas into something new. They debate themselves and each other, an elder observed. Even alone, humans argued inside their own heads. A soldier felt fear, but told himself to move forward. A scientist doubted her theory, then defended it then doubted it again. A child imagined a dragon, then decided dragons were not real, then wondered if they could be. They hold opposite ideas at once, Saran said quietly, still weak but recovering. The Ledhari depended on order. Their own minds were calm and structured. Thoughts followed clear paths. They rarely questioned themselves. They trusted their internal signals completely. That was why their power worked. When they entered another species' mind, they followed predictable lines. Insert a suggestion into a stable system, and it spread smoothly. Humans were not stable systems. They were moving storms. They evolved on a world of sudden change. Earth had earthquakes, floods, predators, disease. Survival required constant awareness. So the human brain became loud. It scanned for danger. It imagined outcomes. It replayed past mistakes. It practiced future responses. They live in uncertainty, Vaylor said slowly. And they're used to it, Saran added. The elders performed a distant scan again, careful not to intrude. They listened only to surface signals. They noticed something new. Across the planet, conversations about mental defense were spreading. Meditation apps increased in use. Cognitive training videos became popular. Discussions about critical thinking filled human networks. Dr. Elena Morris spoke at a global conference. The human brain, she said, is built to question itself. That may be our greatest defense. The Ledhari watched as humans argued about her theory. Some believed her. Some mocked her. Some improved her ideas. Some rejected them. Yet through the disagreement, new techniques formed. Groups practiced focusing their thoughts. Others practiced challenging automatic ideas. Some created games that tested mental flexibility. Instead of panic, there was movement. They did not unite in silence. They united in noise. The Ledhari attempted prediction models. They selected 10 major human leaders and mapped possible reactions if the aliens revealed themselves openly. The models failed. Each leader had conflicting motivations. Each could change position overnight. Public opinion shifted quickly. One event could reverse a plan entirely. We cannot forecast them, an elder admitted. They change too often, another said. Vaylor felt something heavy settle in his mind. Look deeper, he ordered. They examined human brain scans from medical databases. Billions of neurons fired in complex patterns. Regions responsible for imagination and planning were highly active. Humans did not only react. They rehearsed. In their minds, they practiced conversations that had not happened. They fought battles that did not exist. They solved problems before they appeared. The constant mental noise that once seemed like weakness now revealed something else. It was a defense system. Because humans were always questioning themselves, any foreign idea stood out. Because humans imagined threats, they were not shocked by new ones. Because humans argued constantly, no single thought could control them for long. They are decentralized, Saran said. What do you mean? Asked an elder. No single idea leads them. Not for long. Their thoughts scatter, regroup, and scatter again. Vaylor understood. The Ledhari Empire functioned as one mind. Order flowed from the center outward. Their strength was unity and predictability. Humanity functioned as billions of semi-independent minds. Even within one brain, there were competing voices. You cannot control a river by blocking one stream if it splits into thousands. The turning point came when Vaylor reviewed a simulation of global response. If the Ledhari tried to control Earth's leaders, citizens would question sudden changes. Journalists would investigate. Scientists would test anomalies. Rival nations would resist. And even if control worked for a moment, human doubt would erode it from inside. They would fight not only us, Vaylor realized softly, but themselves. And in fighting themselves, they would weaken any external control. The elders fell silent. For the first time in their history, the Ledhari faced a truth that shook their empire. Their power required order. Humans were not ordered. They were alive with contradiction, alive with imagination, alive with internal debate. Vaylor looked at the glowing image of Earth once more. We cannot guide a storm, he said. Saran answered quietly. And this storm is everywhere. The Ledhari had ruled every world by understanding its patterns. But humanity had no single pattern. It shifted. It questioned. It evolved in real time. And in that endless movement, the Ledhari finally understood why they could not take control. Humans were not one mind. They were billions of changing ones. And that made them impossible to predict. High Speaker Valor stood alone in the mind chamber for many cycles. The Ledhari had watched Earth from a distance. They had studied. They had analyzed. They had tried to understand. But the truth was simple. If the Ledhari could not control humanity, then their empire was no longer absolute. Valor turned to the elders. "We attempt one final wave," he said quietly. "All of us. Together." The chamber lights dimmed. 12 elder telepaths formed a circle around him. Saran stood among them, still weak but determined. Their goal was clear: overwhelm human leadership. If they could guide the minds of presidents, generals, and decision-makers at once, control might still be possible. Valor raised his hands. "Focus. Unite." The Ledhari joined their minds into one powerful signal. Then they released it. The telepathic wave moved across space like silent lightning. It struck Earth. They entered thousands of minds at the same time. For a brief second, it seemed to work. Human leaders paused in meetings. Generals hesitated mid-sentence. Scientists looked up from their desks. The Ledhari pushed a single idea into them all. Stand down. Accept guidance. There is no threat. But instead of clean obedience, they hit resistance. Not organized resistance. Chaotic resistance. In one mind, fear rose sharply, but was followed by anger. In another, doubt appeared, but turned into curiosity. In another, a leader felt sudden calm, then immediately questioned it. "Why am I calm right now? That doesn't make sense." The Ledhari pushed harder. They entered more minds. Thousands became millions. They expected collapse. Instead, they found something else. Billions of conflicting emotions exploded around them. A mother holding her child felt fear, but also fierce protection. A soldier felt dread, but also pride and loyalty. A comedian sensed something strange and turned it into a joke in his head. An artist felt the pressure and began imagining it as dark clouds breaking apart. Human creativity flared under stress. They did not shut down. They reacted. Across the world, people felt something unusual. A strange pressure. A thought that did not belong. But humans were used to strange thoughts. They lived with mental noise every day. And now, that noise grew louder but more focused. Dr. Elena Morris sat in a quiet lab. When the wave touched her mind, she felt it clearly. There it is, she thought calmly. Instead of panicking, she straightened her posture. She had practiced for this moment. She imagined her mind as a room. She imagined locking the door. Around the world, others did similar things. Some imagined walls. Some imagined fire. Some imagined mirrors that reflected the intrusion away. They did not know they were fighting aliens. They only knew something foreign was present, and they pushed back in the only way they knew how, with imagination. The Ledhari felt the shift instantly. Their wave began to shake. Human minds did not move in lines. They did not accept one direction. They split. They debated. They created new mental images faster than the Ledhari could follow. One telepath screamed as he was flooded with human humor, thousands of absurd thoughts and sudden jokes breaking his concentration. Another staggered as conflicting emotions hit him at once. Love, rage, hope, despair, courage, all tangled together. Valor tried to stabilize the wave. "Maintain formation," he commanded. But formation was meaningless inside the human storm. Some humans began visualizing barriers actively. They imagined shields growing stronger the more pressure they felt. The more the Ledhari pushed, the stronger the human focus became. Fear turned into determination. Confusion turned into analysis. The telepathic wave began to break apart. And then something unexpected happened. Feedback. The Ledhari were used to entering passive minds. Human minds were not passive. They imagined back. As the aliens reached into billions of brains imagined the source of the intrusion. Some imagined giant shadows in the sky. Some imagined glowing beings made of light. Some imagined monsters. Some imagined defenders. All those images crashed together and surged outward. The Ledhari felt the weight of collective human imagination pressing against them. It was not a weapon. It was not an attack. It was possibility without limits. The wave destabilized completely. Telepaths fell to their knees inside the chamber. Saran cried out as human images overwhelmed him. Dragons, machines, heroes, disasters, futures that had never happened. Vaylor felt his own mind bending under the pressure. This was not control. This was chaos shaped into force. "Withdraw!" he shouted. The Ledhari broke the connection all at once. The wave snapped. Silence crashed over the mind chamber. Several elders lay motionless on the floor, breathing heavily. Saran trembled, his eyes wide with shock. Vaylor stood slowly. He looked at the image of Earth floating on the chamber wall. Below, humans were restless but standing. News channels argued about strange feelings. Scientists debated. Citizens speculated. No one had collapsed. No one had surrendered. They did not break, an elder whispered. Vaylor closed his eyes for a long moment. Then he spoke the words that would be recorded in Ledhari history forever. "They do not think in lines," he said quietly. He opened his eyes and stared at the blue planet. "They think in storms." And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Ledhari Empire understood that some storms cannot be controlled, only survived. The mind chamber stayed dark for many cycles. No one spoke of conquest anymore. The Ledhari Empire had never known defeat. They had never needed armies. They had never needed to retreat. But Earth had changed something. High Speaker Vaylor called the full council together. Elder telepaths from across their empire joined through mental link. The connection was calm, controlled, orderly, unlike the storm they had touched. Vaylor stood in the center of the chamber and spoke clearly. Earth cannot be ruled through telepathy. The words fell heavy. Murmurs moved through the link. "We can try again," one distant elder suggested. "No," Vaylor answered. "We cannot guide what refuses to stay still." He showed them the recordings, the failed wave, the collapsing formation, the feedback of human imagination, the injured telepaths. "They are not shielded by technology," Vaylor explained. "They are shielded by their own nature." Another elder asked, "Then what are they?" Vaylor answered slowly. "They are mentally resilient, cognitively chaotic, impossible to guide." Silence followed. The Ledhari had once believed silence meant weakness. Now they understood something new. Silence made control possible. Earth was never silent. The council made its decision. Earth would not be conquered. Earth would be observed. They placed satellites at safe distance. They monitored from afar. No more direct intrusion. No more waves. For the first time in their history, the Ledhari Empire marked the world as untouchable. On Earth, life continued. Governments argued as usual. News channels debated strange global feelings that had passed like a storm. Some called it stress. Some called it mass anxiety. Some called it coincidence. Most people moved on, but few did not. Dr. Elena Morris sat in her office late one evening. She reviewed global brain scan data collected during the strange event. There had been a spike, a brief period where human neural activity increased worldwide. Not random chaos, focused activation. It was as if humanity had flexed. She leaned back in her chair. "It felt like something tested us," she said quietly to herself. Her colleague laughed softly. "Tested us for what?" Elena stared at the data. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we didn't break." Across the planet, meditation groups grew slightly larger. Critical thinking classes became more popular. Discussions about mental awareness increased. Humans did not know why. They only felt that something had brushed against them, and they had pushed back. In orbit, the Ledhari watched carefully. They studied human culture without touching it. They observed something strange. Humans told stories about aliens long before the Ledhari arrived. They imagined invasions. They imagined peace treaties. They imagined heroes standing against advanced species. They prepared for us without knowing we existed. Saran said quietly one day. Vaylor nodded. They imagined everything. That was the key. Other species thought to survive. They reacted to what was in front of them. Humans thought beyond survival. They thought about what might happen. They questioned their own ideas. They imagined impossible futures. They argued about them. They doubted them. They rebuilt them. They resisted not only enemies, but also themselves. And in that constant questioning, they found strength. The Leadhari realized something else. Their empire had grown powerful because minds were predictable. Order made control easy. But order also made them blind. They had never questioned their own method of conquest. Humans questioned everything, even their own thoughts, especially their own thoughts. Vaylor stood alone in the mind chamber once more, looking at Earth glowing softly in the distance. Control requires silence, he said to himself. Below, humans laughed, argued, dreamed, worried, planned, and imagined. They were never silent, not in sleep, not in fear, not in peace. Their minds were loud with memory, possibility, doubt, and hope, and that noise had saved them. The most powerful telepathic empire in the galaxy had learned something it never expected. There are weapons made of metal. There are weapons made of energy. And then there is imagination. Vaylor turned away from the glowing planet. Let them grow, he ordered softly. The Leadhari ships adjusted their orbit and kept their distance. Earth continued spinning, unaware, unrolled, unquiet, and somewhere in the silent depths of space, the greatest empire in history recorded a final note about the human species. The galaxy feared weapons. It should have feared imagination.